We are back at MJ Bizcon 2024. Today is Mellow Friday.
Hangover Friday.
Hangover Friday. Yes, for you. I don't drink anymore.
Insider info.
Insider info.
We're here with a couple friends of mine, three friends of mine, sorry, two, three, a few friends of mine, talking about a very interesting subject, a subject that is going to redefine the cannabis industry for decades to come. Interstate commerce, international commerce as well. It is a challenging industry because people have to wrestle with plans, with investments, with their ideas and how they bring them to market, with the total absolute uncertainty as to what the future might look like. You know, so it's very challenging, and I'm really pleased to be joined by co-moderator
Max Uhas.
Introduce yourself.
Max Uhas from Dope SEO. This is going to be an interesting one because this is very conceptual.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be tough, and and I'm pleased that Brian here, who has a big investment and a big project, tremendous expertise, he's actually in the fight. You know, for us, it's an intellectual exercise. So his genuineness, his knowledge is about to be shared with us, which I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say.
Me too.
Yes, well, I know, because it's tough. It's a lot of speculation, but it's your livelihood at risk. For us, it's we're trying to educate, let people know some of the issues, and you're in the middle of the fight trying to figure out the rules of the fight while you're fighting, which is really freaking tough. And Jonah, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, what's up, guys? I'm Jonah Tacoma from Dab Stars. I think this is going to be a great episode because this is something that's going to affect all of us. When this finally becomes something that we can export, that means the price globally equalizes. We can start to see farmers in Oregon put their pot up for sale in Las Vegas. I got two mics. Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is a big deal because when the price of cannabis finally goes legal, when it goes federal, it becomes equalized, and we can start to see a sustainable price for the farmer.
All right, tell us about yourself and Dab Stars. Then we're going to let Brian introduce himself. Then we're going to get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I'm Jonah Tacoma. I started a company called Dab Stars in 2013, recognizing the rock stars in the community. It was the people that you looked up to, the activists, the guy that went to jail, the grower that we all whispered about when he came in the room. And we started documenting who these people were, and that went viral. We now have 2.1 million followers on Facebook and 250,000 on Instagram.
Congrats.
That's awesome. And so, Brian, go ahead.
My name is Brian Hill. I'm here with High Jolly Manufacturing. Sorry about the voice. It's
You're good.
Let's talk closely.
It's Friday on Vegas.
Like that. I see dead people.
But we, I've been in the cannabis industry for 11 years. We opened a retail shop and kind of have been growing there, growing that sense. And really the next fun thing for us is the manufacturing of products, of client products, and really seeing where this is going to go from a mature. I guess as the industry matures, how do we come and meet that demand for quality products that are consistently made?
So I'm going to start just a quick explanation. Right now, because of the way that cannabis is being legalized, you have to manufacture your products state by state, country by country, and they can't cross state lines. Is that a fair enough, simple overview?
For the most part in the legal market.
And
Very difficult to have a consistent product.
Very difficult to have a consistent product.
Just grab the mic from him. And so for those entrepreneurs that want to get involved, they have to decide how to, spend their capital. And Brian, for example, has spent a great manufacturing facility built in Arizona that can facilitate only Arizona. He cannot manufacture products for New York, which Pace Picante obviously can manufacture in New York. They ship to Arizona. But that is going to change.
And
Maybe,
that's really the
maybe
most
not.
important thing, to having a consistent consumer experience, right?
Right. And so, this has been an issue for 10 years in the 15 years in the cannabis space, the legal cannabis space. I don't think it was as much of an issue in the illegal cannabis space.
Well, it was in the terms that if you wanted to have the same product, your blue dream was not my blue dream.
Right.
And especially now when there's so much incentive to have that new, everybody's rebranding and pushing things out. And what Brian really touched on was the pain point in all of this. It's hard to have a consistent consumer experience when you're forced to have separate regulations, separate manufacturing, separate licensing, when there's no correlation between the different facilities. It's impossible to have a product that's exactly the same.
Right.
The Big Mac will never taste like a Big Mac in Colorado the way it does in Washington. And we need that for the consumer.
For the consumer, right. And you're talking about it from a consumer perspective. And that's very important to mention. because as you go through this process, this dilemma, this controversy, this reality in the cannabis space, there's different perspectives and there's different agendas. So if I know you just mentioned the consumer perspective, if you want to talk about it from the brand perspective and what the brands want, and then I'm going to talk about it from the international manufacturer's perspective, and please talk about it from your perspective first as to what you see, how it works now, what you're hoping for, and the impact it's going to have on your bottom line.
I think this question of interstate commerce exposes the great hypocrisy of the state of cannabis right now, which is federally, it is not recognized. The moment it becomes a Schedule III drug, all of a sudden it becomes recognized. And so we're shifting overnight we're ignoring this from a consumer safety perspective, from a FDA perspective, into now the spotlight is on this product and how are these products made. If you want to engage in interstate commerce with a Schedule III drug, you eventually will need to seek FDA approval. And once you do that, now you are playing with all the nutraceuticals, all of the same standard FDA requirements that other people are currently operating in outside of the cannabis sector. So are you ready for that? From strictly a technical standpoint, nobody's ready for that because FDA doesn't license cannabis facilities. So not yet. So are we on, GMP? Okay, that's a starting baseline. How many people out there are not going to survive if that is a criteria on day one? And we need to be asking ourselves as manufacturers, how do we prepare ourselves for scrutiny? And me personally, I want that scrutiny. I want to have the barrier to entry very difficult so that the consumers and the brands that I produce for, the products that I make that eventually wind up in people's bodies, we know that they're good. We know that they're tested. We know that we've been through the ringer on making sure that these products are safe for people.
So you set up your manufacturing facility to get ready to deal with federal legalization. Your business plan is you feel okay because then you'll just start manufacturing and exporting across the country.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Okay.
Well, you have South Africa that has.
Now I won't feel bad that I say that I'm in favor of interstate commerce.
Well, yeah, we need it at some point.
Some of the guys like closed market structures. Okay.
No,
South Africa
interstate
got
commerce will
biomass
balance out
piling
so
up
much.
because no one will export from them. So they have GMP, they have all the laws set up, and they are producing biomass, but they can't get it anywhere because the rest of the world isn't online yet.
Right, and same thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, interstate commerce will allow for so much growth. Here's the thing. So when you think about, and this is there's so many like areas to this, but if you think about a state like Florida, but if you think about a state like Florida, where you have, a couple companies with that dominate the market because they own, like, how many licenses are there in Florida? Like 20 something for retailers.
It's low.
Yeah, there's only like 20 licensed retailers, give or take, in the entire state of Florida. So you have, we own 200 locations. That's market. That's essentially market. I mean, that's market domination. You know what I mean? Whereas like in other states, like Oklahoma or New Mexico or wherever, it's a more competitive sort of free market where like you can compete, you can come in and you can get traction. Every state is a little different, and I think interstate commerce will allow for. I mean, there's so many benefits to it, but I feel like the guys that have that power in specific states are always going to fight that.
And what you were saying is
because you're giving up market share now.
I'm so glad. No, hi Jolly, give you props. You support interstate commerce. Love that. That's a good position to have. There are other manufacturers that do not support interstate commerce.
Right, because they want to control the market.
Hire lobbyists to say you can never come into Florida.
Right.
And exactly what you were saying.
Right.
As you were saying, the consumers, the patients, they want it, they deserve it. And as you haven't brought up the brands yet, but the brands want it too because it's easy for them to migrate.
Cannabis will eventually be regaled. It'll be in a production region. So the same place we do any other commodity like that, we're going to have certain areas that, like Oregon, that are capable of producing way more than we can in the desert here in Las Vegas. And so that price becomes equalized when we can start to spread that around a little bit.
There's another aspect of interstate commerce that I want to talk about, and that is it's more of a passion for me, which is, I manufacture edibles, I manufacture vapes, but all of those things first come from the plant. And so much cannabis is grown indoors, which I think is like a violation of my ideas about what an agricultural product should be. We are talking about a cannabis product that should have provenance. It should come from someplace, Parmigiano Reggiano comes from a specific region in Italy.
Yeah.
Champagne comes from a specific region. We should be able to celebrate an agricultural product that has provenance and specificity to where it came from. And I think that we could celebrate terroir just as we do with wine or food or any luxury, delicious product that has an origin. We can do that with cannabis.
Well, and ultimately the consumer decides that, because we decided that we liked what was coming out of the Champagne region of France more than we like the other stuff.
Absolutely.
And we like what comes out of Humboldt more than we might like what comes out of New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And so we earn that reputation with the consumer, and then we have to build on that credibility.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, with manufactured products, though, do people know where the flower comes from?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, how?
I mean, there are two sides of the same coin, which is a manufactured product being consistent across the United States. I understand that there's some standardization that has to go into that product. But strictly from the flower side, we're ignoring the fact that flower itself comes from a plant. That plant comes from soil, and it could come from a very specific zip code that really means something to the consumers.
I'm with you on that. I have seen Gladiator like 100 times, and
With
every
the
time
wheat?
he checks the dirt, he smells it.
The Orange Hills of Jamaica.
Right. If all dirt were the same, he wouldn't do that.
Well, I feel like that was
Something?
more of a mental preparation for him to go into combat, to be honest.
Really?
I feel like that was like a combat ritual for him, to like, he's like, all right, I'm going to, like, basically that was like a
So
centering.
why does he smell it?
Because he may become one with it. soon
Terroir,
enough.
baby.
Might
You
be
have to
innocent.
understand your enemy. Like, this is the ground we're fighting on. I want to become one with the earth.
And I think it's the same thing with growing, right? You
yeah,
gotta
absolutely. You
understand
want to
what
become
you're-
one with the ground that you're about to go to war with, or just love on. You know what I mean? Either which way.
So I'm going to go to the international manufacturer perspective in a second.
Okay.
You stick with brands, stick with consumer patients, stick with state level manufacturers. Quick question over here in regards to what I kind of see happening, as you were saying, FDA. It becomes more challenging to do products. It becomes more restrictive, more expensive. What impact do you see that happening on like entrepreneurs and the innovators and the small town guys that wanted the farmers markets?
The
We
barrier to
love that
entry
about
goes way
cannabis.
up.
I know, but
And
we
so-
love that about cannabis.
We love that about
Same.
cannabis, and we've needed that to evolve the science of cannabis this far. So we were talking about licensing restrictions. You touched on Oklahoma, where licenses were $2,000 and open to everybody.
Right.
And you have shops everywhere.
Well,
They're
not
inundated. They
anymore.
don't feel
Not
like they
not
can
anymore.
be-
Like-
well, because they had to come through and regulate, right?
They had to come to it regular, but it was
Hawaii
also,
started
yeah.
with 7 licenses. So they
Yes.
said you had to have $1.5 million in an escrow account for a year, and
Yeah.
then we'll talk about your license. And so instead of having this massive open ecosystem, you have 7 really established companies that can control all of cannabis in Hawaii. And that's so foreign from the cannabis scene that's actually there. The people in Oahu grow their own pot. The ruderalis
Right.
that comes out of there is amazing because they have to deal with their own climate. It's always flowering over there. Same thing in Jamaica. So they have their strains and their own genetics that are coming out of there that need to be protected, and they're being cut out of the system completely. So there's always going to be room for the black market because they're always going to overtax these things. They're always going to overregulate them. And when the FDA gets here, it's going to be almost impossible to pass mold and microbial while growing outside. And we just agreed that these plants should probably see the sun, right? I love indoor, but there is a room for outdoor,
Yeah.
especially when we're talking about biomass. And that's why Africa is so important. That's why Mexico is so important, because these are production regions for all kinds of other commodities
Right.
and grossness.
Right.
They're gonna be writing dissertations at business colleges for decades about the mess that was the unraveling of the drug war of prohibition.
And alcohol.
Well, I mean, the thing is with alcohol, one thing I realized over the last 12 years is that you can't compare the two because there was an alcohol supply chain that went dormant. There was an alcohol market that went dormant and then came back, right? And the mess I'm referring to is that there was a dormant legacy market. There was a way to produce out of Humboldt and out of Mexico, et cetera. And that wasn't ever given the opportunity directly to take the market back once the drug war prohibition ended. All these wild ideas, all these regulatory structures, all these legislative models, all these initiatives, referendums came up with new concepts, new ideas as to what market structures should look like. Even the concept of limited licensing, which is an economic concept that has nothing to do with cannabis, got thrown into our industry for the wrong reasons, and we're stuck with it because it just gets replicated and replicated and replicated. And people, it's just such a weird economic phenomenon that has nothing to do with cannabis. It's just like dissertation level shit.
100%. I had the chance to interview Vincent De Fox. He's a board member on High Times, Chiron in Colombia. But most famously, he was the president of Mexico in 2000. And I asked him, what does this mean for the cartels if cannabis goes legal in Mexico? We're ultimately taking something that's in the black market and we're moving it into the legal market. And that's the same thing that happened in the US. If you were a member of the cannabis scene for more than 10 years, if your company is more than 11 years old like mine, you were part of the black market.
Yep.
And we all agreed to break a law that we didn't believe in. And that's really what sealed our community together. That's what made our community strong, because we had to vet each other in because we couldn't trust the outside influence. And I think if we're not careful, these big companies are coming for our industry. And right now we're protected by the legal state. As weird as it sounds, the illegality of marijuana is what's keeping us alive and a part of it.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
What did Fox say about cartels?
He said that we have to allow these players to come into light and make the transition to be legitimate businessmen.
Okay.
And I agree.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I got it.
And they don't like him very much. He's not the cartel's guy right now.
No. But it once again, it's 100 years ago, alcohol was on prohibition. You know what I mean? And the guys that made, like, there were plenty of bootleggers, plenty of people that were importing from other countries. I just rewatched Boardwalk Empire again for like the fourth time, and I was like, God, that was such a good show, and it's so relevant to this industry right now, to where it's like supply and demand, and it's you choose to break a law that you don't believe in. Why? Because look, there's a number of reasons here, but this is a consumer society. You know what I mean? People are going to want what they want, and the person that can supply it to them will get it to them. And correct with the states, what's keeping you in business is the fact that the other companies can't just come in. You know what I mean? You can't just have Amazon come in here and be like, Amazon weed. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And because there are some big companies here that are poised. I'm looking at a sign floating around in the sky right now that are literally poised to take all that data from all of their online interactions, because they have that list from day one, what they buy, what they shop for, what they buy in each state, and can literally say, hey, are you struggling? We'll buy your dispensary and we'll start it. You know, we'll just you can still run it, but we'll rebrand it and it'll be ours.
Oh, and then
that's
the other thing, craft beer is gone. That's how all these things have been consumed.
And then it's actually, if you allow interstate commerce, then because I have clients in Canada right now, mail order marijuana is a thing. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to have a physical location. It just like CBD shops, just like the online hemp stores, just like a company like Mood. Right? Mood does not have a physical location anywhere. Mood does $10 million at least in online sales a month doing hemp flower. If you get interstate commerce, guess what? You may not even need a local dispensary anymore. You may just be able to mail order marijuana.
You need a mailbox.
You just need a mailbox. You
can order wine.
Well, here's the thing: just like you can order wine, but here you go. There goes the trap model. There goes the telegram model. There goes everything, because now you can buy from a licensed, legalized person. So there are a lot of nuances, because there are plenty of guys that are like, yo, if you have an Instagram feed, if you've looked at your Vita feed, I guarantee yo, check out what I got. And it'll just be an Instagram story with prices and a telegram link. And that's been happening for years. But here's the thing, but you can allow people now to do it on a legal level. You can allow people now to there's so many variables in this to make sure it gets done right.
Well, and he really touched on it. Alcohol as a parallel, that was a legal market with being satisfied by legal suppliers, and then it was taken away from the legal market, and then illegal players entered into it.
Yep.
And then the legal people got it back, right? This is a different paradigm. This belonged to us. It never belonged to the legal people. It always belonged to the people that represented it on the black market side. And now that it's coming to terms, now that it's profitable, now they're trying to take it away from us.
Right.
You know, it's just this conversation goes to show how, you know, how complicated it is and how these regulations, these laws, these market structures impact things so much. I mean, we're so far away from the free market. We almost had a more free market when we had prohibition, when we had the
because
drug
it was
war 2.0.
competitive. It was essentially, look, I was around when all weed was Mexican brickweed. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Everybody goes, hell yeah, I remember that. You know, when you just had that.
Hawk and gold.
Yeah. And
Those
it
were
all-
not good times, though.
No, but I mean, but that's when, I mean, it was like seeds and stems, bro. Seeds and stems.
And we didn't know better.
They didn't know better. And then people started introducing hydroponics, and you're like, what is this purple shit?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now we're at a point where it's just like there's so many talented people in this space. If you do a direct comparison to alcohol versus cannabis, you know, like even with alcohol, you need to have, like, I have clients that make wine and also make CBD wine and do other stuff like that. They can ship their CBD wine to almost everywhere in the country. They cannot ship their wine though, because they don't have an alcohol license in that state. You know what I'm
That's wild
saying?
stuff.
It is. So we can ship bottles of CBD wine all over the country, but there's only like 4 or 5 states where we can actually ship wine, because they have a liquor license or a liquor distribution license in that state. So there's a lot of weird, I'm not gonna say nuances, but like they're not really weird, but it's just like there's a lot of shit that has to happen for this to for this to work. And it's not just like, well, everybody can just sell weed. You know what I mean? Because then, like, there has to be checks and balances. There has to be
dry
stuff.
counties in the South that don't sell alcohol.
There are still dry, and you think about Colorado. There are dry counties in Colorado.
I grew up. I was born in Uray, Colorado, and when I grew up in the cannabis scene there, Colorado was terrible. It was all imported brickweed, and if we saw green bud, we called it Cali bud. We took no ownership of it at all. If it was green, it was from California.
Because it didn't
was
come from
brown,
here.
It was our local weed that came from south of the border.
Well,
We didn't get good weed in Colorado until much later.
I'm gonna let you guys wrap up with some closing thoughts. We didn't even touch on the international aspect of this.
International is a whole other
It
thing.
is going to be a wild.
GNP. I mean, we have
Yeah, the
Africa,
GNP,
we
yeah.
have Canada, we have even the Dutch have issued provisional licenses to try and explore the idea of exporting and importing. But you have to have people to receive the product so you can ship it. And we went to beautiful Americanized facilities in South Africa, look just like they do here in Vegas. Tons of great product being grown everywhere, and they literally are stacking it until it goes bad. And then all you can do is turn it into distillate.
Well, I'm going to let Brian close us out, because ultimately, I'm absolutely fascinated by this. I know a little bit. You're absolutely fascinated by this. So is he. We talk about it. We help educate. We help educate consumers, the industry, etc. He's got millions of dollars invested in his manufacturing center. What are your thoughts? What are your final thoughts on interstate commerce?
Final thoughts. Supply and demand work themselves out, without our help. If there's a want, if there's a need, there will be people to satisfy that thirst. Look at prohibition, right? So interstate commerce, there's just too much money into it. There's too much potential for it never to happen. So I think it's a win, not an if. I think that we, in the existing cannabis market now, need to self-regulate. We need to be architects of our own destinies and make sure that we're controlling the stream of the river, not just floating down it blindly, because it's coming, it's happening. But we can shape how that's going to look too. We have massive input on how this is going to look. I'm excited for the future.
I apologize, because I actually don't know your
Well said,
guys'
Brian.
cannabis investments. For all I know, you're partners in manufacturing centers, grows, and cultivations. I just know him really, really well. So I apologize if I don't know your guys' portfolio. So anyways, Brian, we thank you and we appreciate you. I like the fact that High Jolly is a supporter of interstate commerce. Ultimately, that is what's best for humanity. The closer we can get to free market, the more I think the world will be a better place. But that's just me. So
Amen.
thank you guys for joining us.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it, you guys.